the British Superlite Championship, sponsored by wanttoliveafloat.com.
Three Sisters Race Circuit in Wigan is the venue for round 5 of the 2013 British Superlite Championship. Plenty of action from the 650 and open classes today. Moving on to 650 race 1, Jake Swan's on the front row with Anthony Jackson and Tony Turner. On row 2 is Tim Page with Ken Walton and Paul Hudson. On row 3 is Phil Redfern with Mike Bayliss and Sadie Redfern. On row 4 is Gordon Knox with Danny Kerwood and Wayne Stockbridge. On row 5 is Andrew Crombie and Michael Bradbury. Completing the lineup then for 650 race number 1. A super pole in action today here at Three Sisters to denote who will start on the front row in pole position. Alongside me, Luke Jameson, as ever, as the drivers are about to get underway, Luke.
So the drivers get underway with race number 1 in the 650s here at the Three Sisters race circuit here in Wigan, and we're on board there from the man in first place, Jake Swan, looking back at Tony Turner in the number 84 Superlight in second place there, and I think Tony's just managed to get himself in front of number 41 Anthony Jackson. Brilliant onboard shots there from the reverse angle from Jake Swan, the man out front, but Jake's got the start, and as we've seen before, Chris, he's got a nice turn of pace when he's got fresh air in front of him.
Well, he's got a turn of pace right behind him. That's Tony Turner. Interesting to see that rear view facing camera. There it is again, a little bit wobbly, and that's just caused by the vibration. So much torque in these 650 machines. Tony Turner having a look up the inside then as they come down paddock straight, and Anthony Jackson bringing it up the rear in third there at the moment, but Jake Swan at the moment got the measure of this. Turning on then to Rogerson Straight, Luke.
Yeah, we've said this before, is that it bears some repeating. That the thing is with Jake, it's his second season of racing these Superlights, his first full championship, and he's just got the bit between his teeth now, and when he's got a clear track in front of him, he can set the pace and he can defend, and they really do. The rest of the field, they find it difficult to pass him, and Jake Swan looking for me to be a definite contender for the championship this year.
Oh, absolutely, there's no doubt he's really come into his own. Anthony Jackson in fact was the championship leader earlier in the season, but Jake I think just about overtaking him now. Just picking up the action from these two, there is number 3 Mike Bayliss,
and that's Ken Walton in front of him. Ken's son Joe normally racing with us. Joe not in the field today, but a father and son who often take to the track in these Superlights, but at the moment the elder of the two, Ken Walton, coming under a bit of pressure from Mike Bayliss, as you say, and just going through the dirt section there, Mike all over the back of Ken Walton, and in 21 that's Wayne Stockbridge a little bit further down the field, and I think Gordon Knox, and then Danny Kerwood going through there. Danny Kerwood just heading up the hill to Coward Summit, and normally we see Danny Kerwood running a little bit further up at the field, but there's another man who we normally see towards the front, Phil Redfern in the number 50 machine, Chris, now putting a little bit of pressure onto Anthony Jackson in third place. So Phil not with the best of starts to this race, but he's certainly finding his pace now.
Oh, drifting it out wide and sliding it there, trying to get the power down early, but yeah, no surprise. I mean, certainly recent form has shown that Phil Redfern's not been making the best of starts, but has really been fighting his way through the field in some style as well, and it's been rather entertaining to watch so far this season, watching Phil as he absolutely anchors the brakes there, turning it in there and trying to gain any advantage over Wayne Stockbridge. I'm not sure it's the quickest way at the moment, but it's certainly entertaining for us to watch.
It certainly is, and I'm sure Phil finds it entertaining, but I think the fact of the matter is with Phil, he's sort of the school of thought of fast in and fast out rather than slow in, fast out, and he carries a lot of speed in, anchors up the back end and scrubs off the speed by going sideways, and then sticks his foot in again to set off forwards. But that man out front, Jake Swan, perhaps a little bit smoother than Phil Redfern, and you can see from the gap there that I think the man has just moved up into third place briefly. Oh no, Tony Turner probably coming up to a back marker actually there at the back of that shot, but Jake Swan looking very, very tidy out front, Chris.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, probably the smoothest driver in the field. I have said in the past, Phil Lee, a smooth driver, but actually, of course, Phil in the open class, but Phil this year seeming to sort of really get the bit between his teeth and be slightly more aggressive, as Tony Turner has been as well at times, and he's one driver that on his day when he can put it together nice and smoothly can really have some decent pace. Anthony Jackson, though, really under pressure there is Phil Redfern battling past the back marker. That's Michael Bradbury.
Michael Bradbury in the red 100 Superlight there.
Phil Redfern's past there. Anthony Jackson pushing him wide onto the dirt. Now Jackson not getting passed back by the back marker to effectively unlap himself, but a little bit of bother there for him.
Yeah, Anthony Jackson just looked like he ran wide coming out of the dirt section, and there didn't appear to be any contact. Phil Redfern managing to find his way up the inside, and again, we've said before, there's the last lap flag out, but Phil Redfern carries good speed through these corners, and he just went out wide and then made the cutback there as they got onto the tarmac. And Phil got the power down, and Jake Swan has disappeared off into the distance with this race. He's got about half a lap to go, but I think on this form in race number 1, I think the rest of the field are going to struggle to catch Jake all day today.
Absolutely. Well, it is effectively a lap and a half from the start to the finish line on the opposite side of the circuit from the start line for telemetry reasons. But with, as you say, Luke, less than half a lap to go, in fact about a quarter of a lap now, Jake Swan turns in with just 3 corners remaining then to the finish line, and I don't think anyone's going to catch him here.
Yep, Jake Swan heading up the hill to Coward Summit. He'll drop down the hill now towards Rossi Bend, and then that takes him on to the start-finish straight here through the right-hander. And any moment now we'll probably be seeing the checkered flag on board with Jake Swan as he takes the win in race number 1.
Great onboard shot, 2 onboards actually on Jake Swan's machine. So yep, there is the checkered flag, and Jake Swan, our deserved winner in 650 Superlight race number 1. Tony Turner, of course, taking the spoils for second place, but the official results of 650 race 1, Jake Swan taking the win and 35 points ahead of Anthony Jackson in second place, and Tony Turner in third ahead of Tim Page, Ken Walton, Paul Hudson, Phil Redfern, Mike Bayliss, Sadie Redfern and Gordon Knox, the top 10 of 650 Superlight race number 1. Well, if that wasn't enough for you to get your teeth into, we're going to move straight on to the open class of racing, and of course race number 1 for the open class. So it's Phil Lee that lines up in pole position on the front row with Duncan Macbeth and Mark Richardson. On row 2 is Colin Griffiths with Simon Nutter and Danny Whitney lining up on the outside of the second row in P6. On row 3 is James Addy with Charlie Wellborn and Alan Henley. And just one driver on row 4, and that is James Stevens lining up in P10. So 10 drivers competing in the open class today. And again, qualification through Superpole. So Phil Lee working his way to the front row. Great to see him starting up at the sharp end of things, as it were, and making a great start there. Just getting the advantage over Duncan Macbeth. Going out very wide there, number 41, Colin Griffiths.
Yeah, brilliant start. Brilliant start from Phil Lee again, off pole position. And we've seen so far this year, Chris, that Duncan Macbeth has really made the most of it off the start. But on this occasion, Phil Lee definitely taking advantage of that pole position and the route to the first turn, and he's got himself into first place as they head up the hill towards Coward Summit. Mark Richardson there in third in the number 17 Superlight, but it'll be interesting to see whether Phil Lee can hang on to this first place, because we've said it before, when he gets out in front, like Jake Swan in the 650 class, Phil Lee is very smooth, and if Duncan Macbeth can catch him here and put a bit of pressure on, he might be able to force the issue. But somehow, I think in that first half a lap, that Phil Lee's definitely got this Superlight nicely set up for the Three Sisters circuit.
Yeah, well, as I said in the last race, slightly randomly getting onto the open class before we actually got there, Phil Lee's been a driver that on his day can be very smooth. That we've talked about him being, your traditional racing driver, if you like, and as you say, like slow in, fast out. But this season I've just found him to be a little bit more aggressive, and I think that's actually cost him. Here's an aggressive driver as well, though, number 40, Colin Griffiths. I said number 41 before, I'm not sure why. But the ever-present Colin Griffiths having a real tussle there with Simon Nutter, and the two bang wheels there, side by side they go then, coming through this valley section, hard on the brakes then for Colin Griffiths. He goes out wide and leaves the door open for Simon Nutter to get through there. What
a move from Simon Nutter there. I was just about to say, as we were watching Simon putting the pressure onto Colin, that we've seen Simon Nutter also on his day really quick, and again, I don't think there's too much that you can necessarily change with these Superlights, but around this place, if you get your pressures right and your choice of tyres right, it can make quite a bit of difference, can't it?
Absolutely, and of course Danny Whitmire there bringing up the rear, and as far as championship points goes, he's well up there in the British Championship at the moment. He's not the sort of driver that we tend to see going out and taking the out-and-out race wins, but he's performed so consistently over the season. You know, he's in the top 3 of the British Championship and really challenging hard now.
Yeah, definitely. And as I say, the other thing with the Three Sisters circuit is it's progressively more. I say progressively, that's not entirely correct. It's got a lot more tarmac than maybe some of the other circuits that we visit. And if you've got the setup right here and the tyre choice right, it can make a massive difference. James Addy, they're looking to force the issue with number 46 there, Alan Henley. Addy not able to get up the inside at the first time of asking, but on the next one, he definitely forced the issue, got his way through, and now he's coming under a little bit of attention from number 74 there. And that's Charlie Wellborn. Charlie, a newcomer to the Superlight series this year, and we've said this as well, that Charlie looks to be picking up the pace. James Addy in his first season of Superlight racing following that injury when racing the Supermotos at Mete last year, but these two definitely finding the pace now as they get to grips with the Superlights. Yeah, well, it's a battle of the newcomers, I suppose, and James Addy really getting to grips very quickly and very early on with this. How much time he's actually had in the Superlight prior to competing properly in the championship this year, I'm not too sure. I don't think he's had a lot, if any, if I'm honest, but he's really got to grips with it, got the bit between his teeth, and yeah, it's good to see him really attacking it. Yeah, James Addy, definitely a natural born racer. He's, I think he's, if you sort of split him in half, he'd have a checkered flag running through the middle of him like a stick of rock. James Addy, he's definitely one who likes to get to the front and run at the front if he gets the chance. This man there in the number 10 Superlight in the open category, Phil Lee, he's made the start and he seems to have disappeared off and left a very, very quick Duncan Macbeth, who's been a definite championship contender all season. Duncan Macbeth has got no answer to Phil Lee's pace today, which is, to be honest, quite a surprise, really. Yeah, and just going back again to talking about driving style, Phil looks a lot more calm, composed, comfortable and smooth out in front today compared to what I've seen him in some rounds this year. And I'm not trying to be hard on Phil there at all, but just a totally different driving style. I think part of that maybe he's had some mechanical gremlins as well, so maybe been overcompensating, trying to rinse the car a little bit more than he normally would. We're picking up the battle there between Colin Griffiths chasing number 56 Danny Whitmire in front of Colin, yeah. And yeah, Danny just about got the measure of Colin here. Yeah, I think that, if I remember right, that's the Superlight that you've had a whiz round, that number 56 machine of Danny Whitmire, albeit maybe a different paint job on it. There's Simon Nutter, and he's trying to chase down that man ahead of him, number 17, Mark Richardson. Mark in third place, where he's been for the whole of this race, and Simon Nutter managing to get past Colin Griffiths on the third lap, and now he's got his attentions firmly focused on Simon Nutter, on the man in front of him, Mark Richardson, but Mark's looking pretty pacey as well, and I think it'd be interesting to see with these two. This is going to go all the way to the finish now. There's the last lap flag, Chris, so Simon Nutter's got one lap to try and force his way past Mark Richardson to pick up a podium. Yeah, I'm going to look at the inside as we cut away to Phil Lee, our race leader at the moment, and I think at the moment Mark got the measure over Simon Nutter because you know, Mark's driven very well this season actually. He's really been up there and had some fine performances, but Phil Lee back to form. We've seen it once or twice this season, but not consistently like we have in the past, so it's great to see him up here and leading the race. Just interesting to note there that all the way around this lap that we've been with him for the past sort of 30 seconds, Phil Lee keeps looking in his mirrors and you can see the big question mark above his head going, where are they? Well, they're very far behind him at the moment is the short answer to that, but coming down over Coward Summit and into the last corner then, Phil Lee has done enough to take the checker flag in some comfort then for Superlight Open race number 1. A great victory for Phil. Absolutely fantastic performance from Phil Lee as he picks up the checkered flag there. A little wave to the checkered flag, but a sterling performance from Phil. Absolutely. Well, the results for Open Superlight race number 1. 35 points then going to Phil Lee, ahead of Duncan Macbeth claiming second place for his efforts. Mark Richardson taking third after a hard-fought battle from Simon Nutter in fourth. Danny Whitmire got the better of Colin Griffiths, James Addy, Charlie Wellborn, Alan Henley and James Stevens. The top 10 and 10 drivers competing in Open Superlight race number 1. So plenty of action there in the Open class. So Jake Swan taking a well-earned victory in the 650 class to open his scorecard today, and Phil Lee too taking a great win in the open class. Join us again for more action after the break.
British Superlite Championship, sponsored by wanttoliveafloat.com. The British Superlite Championship, sponsored by wanttoliveafloat.com.
Welcome back to Three Sisters for race number 2, the 650 class, and Jake Swan takes pole position on the front row with Tony Turner and Phil Redfern. On row 2 is Anthony Jackson with Tim Page and Paul Hudson. On row 3 is Mike Bayliss with Sadie Redfern and Ken Walton. On row 4 is Wayne Stockbridge with Gordon Knox and Danny Kerwood. On row 5 is Andrew Crombie with Michael Bradbury, completing the lineup then in P14.
So here we go then, the drivers on the grid. And the race director points them to the starting lights. A little bit of movement on the second row there, just on the far side, but a great start again from Jake Swan in the 110 machine. He's out front, and at the moment that's the view on the onboard. I think with Tony Turner in second place, just trying to chase down Jake Swan. But another great start from Jake Swan from pole position, and Jake's out front. And based on his pace in race number 2, Tony Turner's going to really have to put the pressure on in these opening laps to try and force the issue and get Jake to make a mistake.
Just look how close these boys race to each other, and absolutely bumper to bumper there as they're coming over the top. And this is a quick bit of circuit here as they're just getting the power down and then dropping down into a very, very tight right-hander, hard on the brakes, turning it in, and Phil Redfern there in third place at the moment, looking to get the power down and see if he can catch these two out in front.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, because we know, as we said, Phil's pretty quick around this Three Sisters circuit, but Jake Swan very, very pacey so far today. And that man in the number 69 machine, Tim Page, in fourth place, coming under quite a bit of pressure and a few battles all the way down the field. There's Danny Kerwood in the number 7 machine, coming under a bit of pressure from, I think that was Gordon Knox just behind Danny there. And that's the man in the number 88 machine, Andrew Crombie. Andrew Crombie just getting to grips with the Three Sisters circuit, a little bit less experienced than some of the other drivers in this field. Andrew, you can see him getting massive understeer as he goes around Luna there, and that's the man out front who's definitely got his Superlights set up beautifully for this tarmac circuit with a little bit of dirt up the hill there, Jake Swan. And Jake just he looks like he's got all the time in the world in that Superlight.
Well, I suppose racing a Superlight is a little bit different to the other form of racing it does in the form of powerboat racing. And of course, with each lap and each bit of racing, the waves are different and the conditions are constantly changing. You're monitoring that, reacting to it, and you're thinking so fast. So I suppose he does feel like he's got all the time in the world, even if he is out in front.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if that explains why Jake's so smooth, because I guess with waves and boats and all the rest of it, his steering and throttle input has got to be absolutely inch perfect, as it were, and you can't be doing any sudden movements, so it's all got to be very smooth and considered. But speaking of smooth and considered, the man in the 69 machine there, Tim Page, was soaring away at the old steering wheel there to try and stay ahead of Anthony Jackson in the number 41 machine behind him. And I think it's fair to say that on Anthony Jackson's agenda is past Tim Page.
I would say so. Smoothly closing the door, I think the phrase was actually from Tim Page. But Anthony Jackson was picking up Paul Hudson, now coming under some pressure from Sadie Redfern, who I think's not sure if she's on the attack or the defence from the driver behind her at the moment. But there is Paul Hudson getting the power down, just having a quick look at his wing mirror to see where the challenge is from Sadie Redfern, of course, driving in a pink Superlight. There's Tony Turner then in second place, and I suppose for the man, for Tony Turner in second, the man out in front's really been a bit of a monkey on his back this season, because he's not quite found an answer to passing him at the moment. So there's number 3, Mike Bayliss, and just bringing up the rear of this pack then as the train comes through Conroy Straight and turning into Luna.
Yeah, that man is number 4, and that's Paul Hudson. He's trying to chase down ahead of him Anthony Jackson, and Anthony Jackson looks like he's just about put enough pressure onto Tim Page to force Tim into making a mistake. We've cut away from that to the back at the front, and we're with Jake Swan, but looked like Anthony Jackson had managed to make the pass on Tim Page, forcing Tim to make a mistake. We're on board with Tony Turner now as he tries to chase down Jake Swan, the race leader. Yeah, there's a confirmation, number 41, as Anthony Jackson has forced the issue, got past Tim Page, and now Tim Page is coming under the attentions of Paul Hudson, who I think it's fair to say gave him a little nudge from behind there.
Well, Paul working his way past there, and Tim Page going very, very wide, and there's our race leader, as you say, Luke, Jake Swan out in front. And it was incredible to see from the onboard of Tony Turner just the gap that he's pulled already. Let's see if we can get a glimpse of the gap here. It's the full length of Rogerson straight there, turning into Luna, and Jake really pulling away from Tony here.
Yeah, you can see just going around that corner, there's just slight sort of corrections of as Jake's correcting the oversteer that he's getting, and it's only ever so tiny little bits of steering input. Very, very sort of just turning in, nibbling at the grip point, and making sure that he organises the understeer with his throttle control, so he's not pushing the front end too much in the corners. And just Jake looking really, really comfortable, confident, and very, very smooth here today at Three Sisters in Wigan. Looks like also Sadie has managed to maybe get past Gordon Knox, or maybe that's the other way around, and that's the pass from Gordon. Yeah, great move from Gordon. Runs very wide. Sadie comes back at him, and that's the old issue of it, isn't it? It's that was slow in, fast out from Sadie Frost, and Gordon Knox did it the other way around, and it didn't work.
Sadie Frost?
Sadie Redfern, obviously.
But 1 lap left to go, and Sadie making a great move there, and just the experience of knowing how to get that cutback around that valley corner. Well, half a lap left to go. Sadie at the moment with the advantage over Gordon Knox, and just turning into Rogerson straight, still with number 3 there behind.
That's Mike Bayliss trying to chase these two down, but Sadie Redfern, not Sadie Frost obviously, has definitely got the better of Gordon Knox here, and Gordon's trying to see if he can go around the outside here, but Sadie's having none of that. He's got a very, very good run. Don't think that'll be enough to dive up the inside there as they go into the right-hander, but the man out front in the 1:10 machine, that's Jake Swan, and we definitely got his name right for the duration of this race. But Sadie Redfern still out front, being chased down by Gordon Knox. Can she hold on until they get to the checkered flag, Chris?
Well, she's making a good job of it at the moment, and actually seeming to control that little race. But here is the man to take the checkered flag, Jake Swan, his second race win of the afternoon. Fantastic stuff from Jake, and just such a smooth driver. 35 points then in the bag for Jake Swan in 650 Superlites, race number 2, then ahead of Tony Turner in second place, going away with 32. Phil Redfern in third, going away with 30, ahead of Anthony Jackson, Paul Hudson, Tim Page, Sadie Redfern, of course, in that battle for 7th with Gordon Knox, Mike Bayliss, and Danny Kerwood, the 10 drivers in 650 Superlight Race 2. So straight on with Open Superlight Race 2, Phil Lee on pole position again with Duncan Macbeth and Mark Richardson on the front row. On row 2 is Simon Nutter with Danny Whitney and Colin Griffiths in P6 on the outside of row number 2. On row 3 is James Addy with Charlie Wellborn and Alan Henley. And on row 4 is Jamie Stevens completing the lineup then for Open Superlight Race 2.
So the drivers on the grid for Open Superlight Race 2, and the race director points to the starting lights. We've got a great start from the man on the the outside of the track, and that's from pole position. That's Phil Lee managing to get the best of it again. He gets the whole shot ahead of Duncan Macbeth, and great start from pretty much everybody on the grid, but Phil Lee getting the best of it, shuts the door and keeps it very tightly squeezed there. And we're just getting a view from an onboard there with Danny Whitney in the 56 Superlight ahead of us at the moment. I think that's possibly an onboard there from Colin Griffiths, perhaps, or maybe James Addy, not quite sure yet.
It is Colin Griffiths. I was actually going to say, because you said everyone made a good start, I think Colin Griffiths didn't make too good a start, because he was up there on the grid positions, but seemingly dropping back on the first turn there, so cost himself a few places, and now with work to do. There's 150 then, Simon Nutter giving chase to Phil Lee for the second time this afternoon, and here we've got Simon Nutter fending off the challenge from Mark Richardson.
Yeah, so we got in first place at the moment Phil Lee ahead of Duncan Macbeth in second. That's Simon Nutter there in the number 19 machine in third place, coming under some very definite attention from Mark Richardson, who I think was trying to see if he could get the opportunity to dive up the inside there, but Simon Nutter just getting his track position very tidy. Was that a pass just behind? I think Colin Griffiths might have dived up the inside of Danny Whitney in the back of the shot there, so maybe Colin making up a place, and then he'll be trying to chase down Mark Richardson ahead of him. But Simon Nutter's just about got himself sorted out and given himself a little bit of breathing space there ahead of Mark Richardson, who made a bit of a mistake. And you can see there, Chris, that the dirt section has had a little bit of water just to keep the dust down, so it'd be interesting to see how much drive the guys are getting up the hill after they've pulled a bit of that wet stuff off.
Yeah, and Simon Nutter actually bagged a place as well. He's up one position from his starting place too. Is just a bit late on the brakes and a bit of understeer there for number 46 there.
That's Alan Henley just ahead of James Addy at the moment. We're going into the dirt section on board with James Addy now, and you can see there that there's the water's being put down, and the drive not really there for Alan Henley up the hill, but James Addy gets it all sorted out, and he disappears as they head up towards Coward Summit, dropping down the hill now on board with James Addy, and you can see that his camera is a little bit dirty, and somebody's left a hay bale on the inside there. That's slightly awkward and a bit of a hazard in the road, but James Addy managed to negotiate his way around that, and that's number 52, James Stevens, getting involved in the action here with ahead of him, I think, Charlie Wellborn, but James Addy already put a good bit of distance into Alan Henley, and I think Charlie Wellborn may have got past Alan Henley also there in the back of the shot.
Very inconsiderate leaving a hay bale in the middle of the track. Have they never been told to clean up the toys after they've finished playing?
Well, you know what it's like. Sometimes these things get the better of the children before they run off to get their lunch.
Colin Griffiths all over the back of Mark Richardson here, and turning up onto the dirt section. Just see the roost as Colin Griffiths goes out wide and probably gets a face full as well as our camera does as well there. But over the top of Pentith climbing over Coward Summit there, dropping down, and Colin having a sneaky look up the inside, but to be fair, I don't think that was ever going to stick. Massive amount of oversteer there as he gets the power down, and having a real challenge at Mark Richardson. Can he go wide and go around the outside? I doubt it, because I think it's actually been resurfaced there and probably a little bit slippery on the outside there of the S's.
Definitely, but as you said, Chris, the water on the dirt sections made it very, very interesting, because they're all spinning up as they get onto the tarmac because of the moisture on their wheels, and it's giving those who get it all sorted out perfectly the opportunity to make that pass up the hill, or at least put the pressure on. You can see all the way for the last couple of corners, Mark Richardson coming under pressure with Colin Griffiths, and he's made it stick now finally. And that was the thing, just Mark Richardson couldn't settle because he knew that he was under constant pressure from Colin Griffiths, and in the end that pressure has told, and the tail is that he's lost the place. Number 46 there is Alan Henley, still coming under some pressure from Charlie Wellborn behind him. That's not Charlie Wellborn, actually. It's James Stevens now trying to chase down the man in front of him, Alan Henley. That's the race leader, number 10, Phil Lee, and Phil's got a massive gap again in race number 2 ahead of the man who's been on the pace so far this season, Duncan Macbeth, in second place at the moment.
Yeah, well, whatever hasn't been working for Phil Lee certainly is working for him today. It could be down to tyre choice, or it could be actually, getting the Superlight dialed in and set up as he wanted. But some great racing today.
Yeah, and a little bit of great racing further down the field now as James Stevens in the 52 machine trying to chase down Alan Henley. And again, you can see that thing. Alan's running wide up the hill, but James not able to make too much of an advantage out of that. That was his opportunity, but Alan gets himself sorted out as they come over the top of Coward Summit and dropping down the hill into the Rossi Bend. And Alan, despite that little mistake where he ran wide, he didn't panic and he didn't try and floor it, and he's just lifted off the gas, got himself sorted out, and he manages to maintain his position on track. But still, James Stevens trying to force the issue and force his way past, but Alan will see the last lap flag on the next time round, and maybe he can just make it to the checkered flag without conceding that place. There's the race leader, number 10, Phil Lee, ahead of Duncan Macbeth, and I think it's safe to say, Phil, that barring mechanical errors, he's probably got this one sewn up, Chris.
Yeah, well, he has had some bad luck as well, to be fair, so let's hope he can make it round to the finish. But at the moment, looking completely unfazed by the challenge from Duncan Macbeth. It's quite a bit of a distance away from him now.
Absolutely, yeah. You may have heard me stutter slightly. I was trying to avoid the commentator's curse then as I started my enthusiasm for Phil's definite race win with half a lap to go. I was thinking, I could be dropping a minute here, but fortunately for Phil Lee, the commentator's curse as yet hasn't struck. He's just got a few hundred metres to go up the hill, then down the other side, bit of a right turn at the bottom of the hill, and then take the checkered flag with glee in this one for Phil Lee in the Open Superlight Race 2. There's Duncan Macbeth, second place, and a very unfamiliar position for somebody else to be taking a win ahead of that man this season.
I was going to say Phil Lee, no doubt feeling the curse of Duncan Macbeth in second place, but a great win for Phil Lee, taking 35 points ahead of Duncan in second place. Simon Nutter taking third then, and 30 points ahead of Colin Griffiths, Mark Richardson, Danny Whitney, James Addy taking seventh ahead of Charlie Wellborn, Alan Henley and James Stevens, the top 10 of Open Superlight race number 2. So some great racing in part 2 then, both in the 650 classes and the Open classes. A quick Reminder, Jake Swan taking his second race win of the afternoon as two. Carbon copy really in the open class 2. Phil Lee taking his second race win of the day. Join us again for race 3 after the break.
The British Superlite Championship, sponsored by wanttoliveafloat.com. The British Superlite Championship, sponsored by wanttoliveafloat.com.
Welcome back to Three Sisters for 650 Superlite race number 3. Jake Swan takes his third pole position of the day with Tony Turner and Phil Redfern on the front row. Anthony Jackson, Paul Hudson and Tim Page go on row 2. On row 3, Sadie Redfern with Gordon Knox and Mike Bayliss. On row 4 is Danny Kerwood with Ken Walton and Wayne Stockbridge in P30. And on row 5 is Andrew Crombie and Michael Bradbury completes the lineup then in P14 on row number 5. So that's the drivers and grid positions for 650 race number 3, the final 650 race of the day.
So the drivers get underway with 650 race 3, and again it looks like Jake Swan has got the best of it in terms of the run to the first turn, but Tony Turner may have just forced the issue, but he's going to be going round the outside into the next turn, the left-hander. So Jake Swan doing enough to get into first place again in the third race of the day here at Three Sisters in Wigan.
Yeah, well, a great start for Jake again, but a little bit under pressure, just having a good look in his wing mirrors there to see where the challenge is from Tony Turner in second place. I'll tell you what, all these Superlites coming steaming through, it's like buses, isn't it? You want one and they all come through at once.
Yeah, well, Jake Swan, I don't think he'll be too worried about all his race starts coming all at once at Three Sisters here today. He's struggled a little bit in some of the previous rounds, but his last one, 3 out of 3, and today he's certainly made it 3 out of 3 in terms of starts. 2 race victories so far under his belt. That man in second place, Tony Turner, will be trying to steal the spoils in terms of denying Jake Swan another hat-trick here at Three Sisters today.
Yeah, just picking up Phil Redfern, of course, dad of Sadie Redfern. You called her Sadie Frost before, didn't you?
I did, my mistake, yeah. Sadie Frost, formerly married to the actor Jude Law and a model herself, but Sadie Redfern definitely not getting involved in any of those shenanigans and just concentrating on driving Superlites here at Three Sisters today.
Yeah, and having a fair meeting of it as well, to be fair. And problems for number 3 there, Mike Bayliss.
Yeah, Mike Bayliss has run wide there, and it looks like he's lost power as well. So unfortunately for Mike Bayliss, it looks like he could well be retiring from the third race here, but no such problems so far for Jake Swan, and I don't think Tony Turner would mind too much if Jake Swan unfortunately had to retire from this race somehow.
No, I was just about to say, I mean, that's the onboard from Mike. He really from Tony. I think he really managed to close the gap there on Jake Swan out in front, but actually Jake managed to get the power down and seemingly liking that bit and going backwards.
That's 100 Michael Bradbury. Fair recovery, rolling backwards into the scenery there, but stuck it back in gear and got it all sorted out very quickly and has rejoined without too much of a problem. There's Phil Redfern coming under the attentions of Paul Hudson, and we've seen Paul have a very, very good round recently at Finmere, where the dirt section, being a lot of dirt, a former motocross rider, and Paul definitely had a fun time playing in the dirt there, but at the moment Phil Redfern doing a steady job of staying in third place here at Three Sisters.
Yeah, well, Phil, I may have expected him to see him sort of latching onto the back of the front, so we're trying to steam his way past, but not quite managed to find that form or get the toe there. And there is number 100 Michael Bradbury that we saw just a lap ago, backing it into the barrier there, and he's pulled off into the pits, so maybe some mechanical gremlins for him as a result of that.
Yeah, we've got a yellow flag there just to the left as we're coming out of the Rogerson Straight and going into Luna, so not quite sure what the issue is there. That's number 21 trying to force his way upside Danny Kerwood. That's a big issue, that hands up in the air, and that's Wayne Stockbridge there just trying to force his way up the inside of Danny Kerwood, but didn't put the anchors out enough to get around the corner and ran into Danny. Danny's managed to rejoin there, but that was almost could have been worse anyway.
I tell you what, Wayne Stockbridge clearly plays football, because the second he went in for a hard tackle, the arms were up in the air. What me, Gov, as there's more battling going on there with Tim Page and Gordon Knox there.
Yeah, Tim Page just having to reorganise his wing mirrors to see what's going on behind him, but he gets back underway. There's Gordon Knox. He's disappeared off into the distance, leaving the scene of the crime, as it were, potentially. He's heading up the hill through the dirt section and then on to the climb to Coward Summit, dropping down the other side, and that's Sadie Redfern, who's just ahead of him on track and starting to come under the attentions of Gordon Knox. There is Tony Turner in second place. Phil Redfern, very, very tidy, but Paul Hudson can't find his way past.
Well, a great onboard shot again there, and there's no man out in front of him. This is from Tony Turner, of course, in second place at the moment, and it looks like the man out in front, Jake Swan, has disappeared, but there is Sadie Redfern. Not Sadie Frost, I'm going to rub that in once again, but going very deep. Gordon Knox, is he going to look for a wide line to cut back there on Sadie? No, he's actually gone for the high line and trying to get the power down with a long run. So back with his battle here with Paul Hudson, having a cheeky look at the inside of Phil Redfern. Still this battle carrying on then with Sadie Redfern. Gordon Knox steaming up the inside. He did that move to Sadie before, didn't he?
He did, yeah, but that time he didn't run wide so much, and Sadie was almost forced to leap out of the way there, and Gordon just really carrying lots of speed and fast into the corner, but this time he didn't run too wide. I think he was a little bit too late on the brakes last time, but the man out front, still Jake Swan in first place. Jake sees the last lap flag for the final time today here at Three Sisters. He's already lapped the back marker, which is number 88, Andrew Crombie. So Jake Swan looking set fair for 3 out of 3 here at Three Sisters in Wigan.
I'll tell you what, Gordon Knox is going to get a frosty reception from Sadie when he gets back to the paddock, isn't he?
It never ends, it just never ends.
Sorry, but yes, back on board with Tony Turner in second place. And as we say, looks like Jake is cleared off and going for maximum points today to really challenge for this British Superlite Championship in the 650 class here. Of course, Tony's not going to give it up without a fight. And still this battle on between Phil Redfern and Paul Hudson for third place at the moment. Paul currently in fourth, chasing the number 50 man.
That's Phil Redfern in third place at the moment. Quick shout out to Andrew Crombie, number 88, doing a great job as the back marker, just getting out of the way of these guys behind him who were battling for the lead. But Jake Swan takes the win in race number 3 here at Three Sisters in Wigan. A
great race win again. 3 out of 3 then for Jake Swan. Maximum points for him today ahead of Tony Turner in second place. Phil Redfern taking third ahead of Paul Hudson. Anthony Jackson takes fifth then ahead of Gordon Knox. Sadie Redfern, Wayne Stockbridge, Danny Kerwood and Andrew Crombie the top 10 in the 650 class. Well, let's get down to the paddock for reaction then from the top contingent in 650 Superlight race number 3. Here's Vicky.
Tony, from where I'm standing, you're starting to look back on form.
Looking good. Consistency it's all about again. Again, second overall today, second overall at Brighton, second overall last time we was here, third overall at Finmere. It's getting a bit, I just want that number 1 spot. But Jake's on fire, he's quick. I nearly had him on the line this time. I kept it pinned, but he just squeezed me out, and I tried to keep up with him, but he's just got a little bit more pace than me.
Jake, it's a very, very quick layout, which must suit you probably more than a lot of other drivers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm one who gets on well with a little bit less gravel and a bit more tarmac, and when it's a bit quicker, I swear I seem to do quite well, so I'm quite happy.
Where are we going to see you in the next round, do you think? Are you going to be sticking up there? Tony nearly had you at one point, but not quite.
Well, I would hope so. I'm hoping I'm going to keep it stuck up to the front, but we'll soon see. He's quick, he's doing very well, so one can only see.
So the standings then for the 650 class. Jake Swan is the man in the lead of the championship then on 453 points ahead of Anthony Jackson in second and Tony Turner in third place. So 3 wins out of 3, as we say. Some great racing from Jake Swan today. Join us for more action there from the open class after this break. Don't go anywhere.
The British Superlite Championship, sponsored by wanttoliveafloat.com. The the British Superlite Championship, sponsored by wanttoliveafloat.com.
Welcome back to Three Sisters then. It's Open Superlight race number 3, the final race of the day. Phil Lee on pole position for the third time today with Duncan Macbeth and Simon Nutter. On row 2 is Colin Griffiths in P4 with Mark Richardson and Danny Whitmey. On row 3 is James Addy with Charlie Wellborn and Alan Henley. And James Stevens goes in P10 on row 4.
So the drivers just making their way onto the grid now for the final Superlight race of the day from Three Sisters here in Wigan in Lancashire. It's been a great day's racing here. You can see from the gents on the grid in the shorts. Beautiful Wigan weather to keep the sunny disposition for all these drivers, but I'm sure Duncan Macbeth would be happier if he could get a win, because Phil Lee's made 2 starts out of 2 so far, and I think on this occasion finally Duncan Macbeth manages to get the whole shot into the first turn here at 360 Wigan. All sorts of problems there for the drivers.
Really in trouble.
Mark Richardson doing a fantastic job of collecting that Superlight rather than collecting the barriers, and brilliant recovery from Mark Richardson there. He was in the air for a while, but he wasn't off the track for that long. But Duncan Macbeth out front missing all the action, and amazingly Mark Richardson, despite being airborne, is in 3rd place.
Yeah, I was going to say, and actually pinched the plates whilst in mid-air. Is that a legal move? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure it says anything about them remaining on the tarmac at all times.
Well, I think they are allowed to be aerodynamic, and he certainly was in that case.
Yeah, Mark Richardson definitely joining the airborne division of the Superlights here at Three Sisters in Wigan today. But the man out front, Duncan Macbeth, getting the best of it from the start, missing all the calamity behind him, and Mark Richards' aerobatics. That man, number 46, is... that's Alan Henley. I nearly said Danny Whitmey then, but clearly Danny is 56. Alan just doing a little bit of grass cutting there at the back of the field. But Duncan Macbeth out front is going to be under a lot of pressure from Phil Lee, who I would imagine would like to make it to 3 out of 3 for Phil Lee.
Yeah, and I just noticed Duncan Macbeth just having a quick look in his wing mirror, but the wrong one from the opposite direction that Phil Lee was on the attack from then, so really sort of playing a bit of a game of cat and mouse here, trying to make him really work for it, and even trying to figure out exactly where he is in track position. Mark Richardson, though, seemingly really giving chase to Phil Lee for this 2nd place here. He's really on it now.
He is, and I would imagine that Mark Richardson's got a little bit more adrenaline coursing through his veins than he might normally have.
Look at the different driving style again now, Luke. I talked earlier about Phil Lee being a bit more aggressive. He's now in 2nd position. He's now maybe a little bit more rattled, and he seems to be slightly more erratic. It's interesting to see that change, I think.
I think it's just as you say, Chris, when Phil Lee's got a clear track in front of him, he can just drive his own lines. And the thing is that we've talked about it a lot before. Phil Lee's style may be slightly different to Duncan, and Duncan Macbeth tends to brake early and be slower into the corners, whereas Phil tends to carry a little bit more corner speed. So Phil's having to anticipate the braking points of Duncan Macbeth, which are perhaps slightly earlier than Phil would naturally want to brake. So he's constantly sort of driving on his nerves because he's worried about running into the back of Duncan.
Simon Nutter really feeling the pressure there from Colin Griffiths and making a few little mistakes that has cost him a few tenths. And I think Colin Griffiths is really going to be trying to make or force the issue really and make any sort of mistake. But no doubt too is Phil Lee trying to put the pressure on Duncan Macbeth, and Macbeth all over his wing mirrors there to see exactly where the challenge is coming from and who will blink first, I guess.
Absolutely, you can just see as they came down the hill into the start, the pit straight that...
a great quick shot there from the onboard camera. The rear wheel tilting in the air there. Easy for you to say.
Phil Lee's got up the inside of Duncan Macbeth, but Duncan's got to be last of the late breakers there. He runs wide, but he might have just done enough because the next bend is a left-hander as they go into the dirt section, and he does. He manages to hold on to it, holds his line, but some fantastic on-track action with these two battling away. We cut a little bit further down the field as Colin Griffiths there is still trying to chase down Simon Nutter ahead of him, but some brilliant action out front, and somebody's picked up a tyre. That's Mark Richardson, and he closes the door unceremoniously on Simon Nutter, and Simon looks to have stalled on the uphill section, which is pretty difficult for him to recover from.
Yeah, and I think it was those two came together on the first turn as well, wasn't it? So that's twice he's got the advantage over Simon Nutter at his cost.
Yeah, I think Simon Nutter was an unfortunate victim of Mark Richardson's clipping the tyres process there, which cost Simon a bit of a problem. But still, Phil Lee with 1 lap to go here as he tries to force his way past the man Duncan Macbeth, who's out front in first place for the first time in the 3rd race of the day here at Three Sisters in Wigan. And Mark Richardson looks like the possibility of taking 3rd place here is not going to slip through his fingers.
No, absolutely, and right on the back of Mark Richardson there, and Phil Lee still having a look at Duncan Macbeth. Half a lap to go then, and what's he going to do? Is he going to go out wide? Is he going to be able to cut it tight and steam up the inside? It's not quite like where you can have a look at the inside and turn onto that dirt section, because with this configuration they take it right. He's now going to have a look at the inside. The line is blocked off. Duncan Macbeth got the advantage here, Luke.
Yeah, fantastic driving from Phil Lee. To be fair, Phil driving a very, very clean race, no contact, and a great performance from Duncan Macbeth to hang on and to hold off the pressure. But a brilliant race from these two, and Duncan Macbeth takes his first win of the day here at Three Sisters in the final race of the day. But brilliant action on track from those two.
Yeah, some great racing from those two, wheel to wheel, all the way to the finish then in Superlight Open race number 3. Great stuff from both Duncan Macbeth and Phil Lee there, and two, Colin Griffiths having a good challenge with Mark Richardson for 3rd place. So Duncan Macbeth taking the win, 35 points for Open Superlight Race 3 ahead of Phil Lee taking 2nd place, and Mark Richardson of course in 3rd. Colin Griffiths then takes 4th ahead of Danny Whitney, Charlie Wellborn. James Stevens takes 7th ahead of Alan Henley and Simon Nutter in Open Superlights, as I say, race number 3, the final race of the day. Let's get down to the paddock then for reaction with Vicky Monk, who catches up with some of the drivers.
Mark, how's your day been?
Bit of a coming together on the start on the first corner, but luckily that worked in my favour. So yeah, not too bad.
How have you found the layout today?
Yeah, enjoyed it. It's slightly different to what we used to, but yeah, it's been a good circuit.
It's a much quicker circuit compared to the others, I think.
Yeah, it's fast. Yeah, definitely.
Phil, you didn't look too happy partway through the last race. Can you talk me through that?
Well, the start was a bit hectic. I got sort of knocked up into the air and got sort of goosed from behind, as you might say, which cost me a bit against Duncan, but I managed to catch him up and push him all the way. So yeah, fair dues really. It was a good race. We fought hard. It was really clean. We didn't touch each other, or I didn't touch him, but pushed him really hard. So yeah, well was, good really.
So Duncan Macbeth still the man who leads the Open Championship, 468 points, but not far behind is Phil Lee in 2nd with 447, and not far behind him Mark Richardson with 437 in 3rd. So stepping up to take the silverware there, Phil Lee in the Open class is the top man in today's meeting. And of course Jake Swan stepping up to take the spoils for the 650 class. That's it from us here today. We'll see you again next time.
The British Superlite Championship, sponsored by wanttoliveafloat.com.